Los Angeles, November 14th, 2019. Ozzy Osbourne stood in the kitchen of his Beverly Hills home, staring at the black leather vest in his hands. On the back, a massive skull and eagle wings. Below it, in Gothic letters, it read, Hell's Angels, California Charter. That famous crooked smile had appeared on Ozzy's face. Sharon was upstairs in a business meeting. A very stupid idea was crossing Ozzy's mind. But then again, didn't the best stories always come from stupid ideas? A fan had given him the vest. Last week, while they were eating at a restaurant, he'd come up to their table. A young man, trembling with excitement. It was an authentic Hell's Angels vest. His grandfather had left it to him, but he couldn't wear it anymore. He wanted to give it to Ozzy because Ozzy was a rebel, just like them. Sharon had refused immediately, of course, but the young man had insisted, and the sincerity in his eyes had convinced Ozzy. Now that vest was in Ozzy's hands, and a plan was forming in his head. Simple, really. He'd just go out and grab a coffee. But this time, without security, without a driver, just an ordinary man, and wearing this vest. Ozzy put on the vest and looked at himself in the mirror. He was 69 years old, but that mischievous spark still lived in his eyes. Poor John Osbourne from Birmingham was now a multi-million-dollar rock legend. But sometimes, just sometimes, he wanted to be that poor kid again. Those moments when nobody recognized him, nobody took photos, when he was just a man. He slipped out the door quietly. He didn't want Sharon to hear because if she did, she'd definitely stop him. Ozzy's car today wasn't that flashy Rolls-Royce, but the old Toyota forgotten in the back of the garage. He grabbed the keys, gently closed the door, and hit the road. By the time he arrived at the small coffee shop on Melrose Avenue, it was 4:15. He walked in, placed his order, and nobody looked twice. Perfect. Just an old man, dressed a bit oddly. But in Los Angeles, everyone was odd anyway. He grabbed his coffee and sat down on the bench outside. The sun was slowly setting, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. Ozzy took a deep breath. This was what freedom felt like. But it didn't last long, because right then a sound came from the end of the street. The rumble of engines, deep, powerful, threatening. Ozzy lifted his head and saw them. 12 motorcycles in formation, slowly approaching, and on each rider's back was the same emblem. Hell's Angels. The bikers parked. The man in front was massive, at least 6 feet 3 inches, shoulders as wide as a doorway, his beard reaching down to his chest. His arms were covered in tattoos. His vest read, Bull. The others behind him looked similar. Hard stares, steel-toed boots, chains. Bull noticed Ozzy. Or more precisely, he noticed Ozzy's vest. His brow furrowed, and he slowly walked toward Ozzy. His crew followed. Ozzy took another sip of his coffee. He was trying to look calm, but his heart rate had picked up slightly. Bull stopped in front of Ozzy. You could tell what he was thinking from his voice, mocking yet threatening at the same time. "Hold on a minute," Bull said. "Where'd you get that vest, Grandpa?" Ozzy raised his head and met Bull's eyes. That famous look of his, both amused and slightly mad. "A fan gave it to me," he replied in his Birmingham accent. "Nice vest, innit?" Bull's face hardened. The men behind him closed in. "Nice vest?" Bull said, his voice low and slow. "Mate, this isn't just a vest. This is a symbol. You earn this vest. Through brotherhood, through years on the road. And you just look like some old tourist. You got no right to wear this." Ozzy gently set his coffee cup down on the bench. "You're right," he said. "I didn't earn it. But look, I'm just an old man who came out for coffee. Made a bad choice. I'm sorry." Bull didn't back down. The man next to him, wearing a black bandana with a massive scar across his face, said, "Take it off." His voice was full of threat. "Right now, or we'll take it off for you." 1,000 thoughts raced through Ozzy's mind. He should call Sharon. He should call his security. But his phone was at home, and right now he was surrounded by 12 hard-eyed bikers. He started to take off the vest. But just as he was about to unzip it, another voice rang out. A younger voice, a man in his 20s. "Hey, Bull!" Wait a minute. Bull turned. The young man was about to shake Bull's hand when he saw Ozzy. Shock registered in his eyes, like he'd just realized something. He slowly approached Ozzy, studying him carefully. Then his eyes went wide. "My God," he said, his voice trembling. Are you Ozzy Osbourne?" Absolute, freezing silence. The 12 bikers were trying to process the name the young man had just said. Bull's brow was furrowed, confusion written across his face. "Ozzy Osbourne? Rings a bell," he said, his voice still thick with suspicion. The young biker, Jake, answered excitedly. "Are you serious, Bull? Black Sabbath, Paranoid, Iron Man, one of the legends of rock." Bull still wasn't entirely convinced, but now he was looking at Ozzy more carefully. The lines on the old man's face, that familiar glint in his eyes, the shape of his hair. Slowly, the pieces were starting to click together. Ozzy was used to intense attention, but right now the situation was a bit delicate. He lifted his head with that crooked smile and spoke in that legendary Birmingham accent. "Yeah, mate, I'm Ozzy, but today I just wanted to be someone out for coffee. A fan gave me this vest. His grandfather was a Hell's Angel. I know, I shouldn't have worn it, but sometimes old men do stupid things, you know?" Something strange happened in that moment. Bull's hard face softened. His mouth opened slightly. Then slowly, a deep laugh began to rumble out of him. The men behind him started laughing too. The tension had suddenly evaporated. The atmosphere transformed into a rainbow after a storm. Bull shook his head, as if he couldn't believe it. "Holy," he said, still laughing. "We just tried to make Ozzy Osbourne take off his vest. If Sharon hears about this, she'll destroy all of us." Ozzy started laughing too. That mad, childlike, infectious laugh of his. It was so genuine that even the bikers couldn't help themselves. Jake, the young one, sat down next to Ozzy. "My God, Mr. Osbourne," he said, still with disbelief in his voice. "When I was a kid, my dad used to play me Black Sabbath. War Pigs, Paranoid, all the albums. You're my hero." Bull approached too, this time not aggressively, but respectfully. "I apologize, Mr. Osbourne," he said, sincerity in his voice. "We take our vest very seriously. It's something you earn. But you're different. You're already a legend." Ozzy raised his hand, smiling. No, you're right," he said. "I made a mistake. I had no right to wear this vest. But you know what? I respect that path of yours. Loyalty, brotherhood, freedom. I believe in the same things. My brotherhood was just on stage, yours is on the road." The bikers surrounded him now, but this time not as a threat, with admiration. One of them, Blade, the one with the scar on his chin, asked, "Mr. Osbourne, is it true? Did you really bite the head off a bat?" Ozzy laughed, that famous story coming up again. "Ah, that incident," he said, shaking his head. "Yeah, it's true. But it was an accident. They usually threw plastic bats on stage. That night someone threw a real one. I was so caught up in the moment I didn't even notice. Had to get rabies shots after that." Sharon said to me that day, "Ozzy, you're completely mental." She was right, of course. The bikers erupted in laughter. Bull clapped Ozzy on the shoulder, a friendly gesture. "You're one of us, Mr. Osbourne," he said. "You carry the same spirit, giving the finger to the rules, living free, sticking it to the system. We grew up on your music." Ozzy smiled genuinely, but something had changed in his eyes, something deeper, more sincere. "You know," he said, his voice lowering, "I was a poor kid from Birmingham. Music was my escape. When we formed Black Sabbath, we weren't even thinking about being famous. We were just trying to survive." The bikers listened in silence. Bull nodded. "Our story's similar," he said. "Most of us came from rough places. Our families didn't understand us, society pushed us out, but we found our brothers on the road." The bikers looked at each other, an understanding passing between them. Jake stood up and extended his hand to Ozzy. "Mr. Osbourne," he said, "will you join us?" A short ride. Just us, the road, and freedom. Ozzy's eyes lit up. That mischievous kid had come out again. He could almost hear Sharon's voice in his head. "Ozzy, don't. This is too dangerous." But Ozzy had never listened to Sharon anyway, at least not about things like this. "All right," he said, getting to his feet. "But there's one problem. I don't have a bike." Bull grinned. "No problem," he said. "You can ride with me. Or better yet, ride with Blade. He's our smoothest rider." Blade nodded, a big smile on his face. "It'd be an honor, Mr. Osbourne," he said. "Come on, let's ride." Ozzy climbed on behind Blade, put on the helmet, wrapped his arms around Blade's waist. When the engine roared to life, that deep rumble echoed in Ozzy's chest. He'd been on stage for 40 years, performed in front of millions, but the excitement he felt right now was different. This was pure, unfiltered freedom. The convoy moved out. 12 motorcycles, in perfect formation, rolled from Melrose Avenue toward Sunset Boulevard. The sun was setting, the sky painted in crimson and orange tones. The wind hit Ozzy's face, whipping through his hair. In that moment, he wasn't Ozzy Osbourne. He was just John, the kid from Birmingham, a man riding free on the open road. After a while, they reached the top of Hollywood Hills. It was a quiet spot overlooking the city. The bikers stopped, killed their engines. When Ozzy climbed off, his legs were trembling slightly, but the smile on his face was massive. He looked at Blade, his eyes welling up. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick. "That was incredible." Bull approached, holding something in his hand. A small pin, the Hells Angels emblem. "Mr. Osbourne," he said, "we want to give you this. It's not an official membership patch, but it's a badge of respect. You've inspired us, given us courage. Through your music, you taught us what freedom means." Ozzy took the pin, touching it carefully with his fingers. His eyes were slightly moist. "You know," he said, his voice cracking, "I've done a lot of things in my life. Won Grammys, sold millions of albums, played concerts all over the world. But this moment is special. Because you didn't accept me as a rock star. You accepted me as a brother." The bikers hugged Ozzy one by one. These tough, cold, dangerous-looking men were now showing genuine affection to a legend. Ozzy saw that these men were just like him, misunderstood by society, but carrying big hearts inside. Evening had fallen, the city lights beginning to twinkle. Bull turned to Ozzy. "Should we take you back to your car?" he said. "Sharon's probably been calling you." Ozzy laughed. "Yeah, absolutely," he said. "And she's probably furious. But you know what? It was worth it." The bikers rode Ozzy back to his car. Jake handed Ozzy a piece of paper. "If you ever need us," he said, "just call. We're always here." Ozzy put the paper in his pocket, smiling. "Same goes for you," he said. "If you ever need me, my door's always open." The bikers fired up their engines, waved goodbye one last time, and disappeared into the darkness of the night. Ozzy got in his car, looked at himself in the mirror. The Hells Angels pin was still in his hand. He held it against his chest, proudly. Then he laughed. He could imagine what Sharon would say. "Ozzy, you're 69 years old. What are you doing with a motorcycle gang?" But Sharon would understand eventually, because Ozzy had never changed. He was still that kid from Birmingham, the man who wanted to be free, who didn't follow the rules, who lived from the heart. He got home at 8:30. When he opened the door, Sharon was waiting there, arms crossed, eyebrows furrowed. "Ozzy Osbourne," she said, her voice threatening. "Where have you been? Your phone's at home, you went out with no security, I've been going mental." Ozzy smiled like a guilty child. "Sharon, I need to tell you a story," he said. "You're not going to believe it." Sharon's face softened because she could never resist that sparkle in Ozzy's eyes. "Go on then," she said, shaking her head. "What did you do this time?" Ozzy told her everything. The vest, the coffee shop, the bikers, the ride, the pin. Sharon listened, first with shock, then smiling, finally laughing. "Ozzy," she said between laughs, "you're never going to grow up, are you?" Ozzy hugged her tight. "No, love," he said. "I'm never growing up, because if I do, life gets boring, and I never want that." 3 months later, Bull's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. When he answered, he heard a familiar Birmingham accent. "Bull, mate, it's Ozzy. How are you?" Bull was surprised at first, then overjoyed. "Mr. Osbourne, I'm good. How are you?" Ozzy laughed. "I'm good, mate. Listen, I'm doing a show in town next month. I want to invite you and your whole crew. VIP tickets, backstage, everything. What do you say?" Bull couldn't believe it. "Seriously?" "Of course, that's amazing." Ozzy continued. "And one more thing. That night, before I go on, I want to sing a song with you. Paranoid. You and your brothers on stage with me." Bull's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Osbourne," he said, his voice trembling. This is incredible. Thank you." Ozzy smiled. "No, Bull. Thank you. You reminded me of something. Being famous, making money, none of that matters. What matters is real connections, real brotherhood. And you reminded me of that." When the concert night came, the forum was packed. 18,000 people had come to see Ozzy. But backstage, there were 12 bikers, in their Hell's Angels vests and patches, standing proud. Ozzy looked at them and smiled. "You ready, lads?" he said. Bull nodded. "We were born ready, Mr. Osbourne." When Ozzy walked on stage, the crowd went wild. But when Ozzy took the microphone, he said something special. "Tonight," he said, emotion in his voice, "I have some special guests. They reminded me what life's really about. Brotherhood, freedom, being real. Now I'm inviting them to the stage. Hell's Angels, California Charter." The bikers walked onto the stage. The crowd was stunned, then began to applaud. Bull came up beside Ozzy. They shook hands. They embraced. Then the music started. Those legendary riffs of Paranoid. And Ozzy began to sing in front of 18,000 people and 12 bikers. The bikers joined in, their voices becoming one. After the concert, backstage, Ozzy sat with the bikers. Crew members were rushing around, technicians were packing up cables, but they were in their own world. Jake, the young biker, looked at Ozzy quietly. There was something in his eyes, something he wanted to say, but couldn't. Finally, he found his courage. "Mr. Osbourne," he said, his voice shaking. "When I went on that stage today, for the first time in my life, I felt valuable. People usually look at us with fear, but tonight, they looked at us with respect. You gave us that." Ozzy leaned forward, looking into Jake's eyes. "No, Jake," he said in his Birmingham accent. "I didn't give you anything. You were already valuable. I just helped people see it." After the celebration ended and he'd returned home, Ozzy lay in his bed. Tomorrow the press would talk about the concert, but nobody would know the real story. That coffee shop, the wrong vest, the initial fear and the brotherhood that followed. And Ozzy wanted it that way, because the most valuable stories are the ones that aren't shared, the ones that are just lived. As he closed his eyes, one last thought came to him. Maybe he wasn't the Prince of Darkness. Maybe he was just John, a man from Birmingham with a big heart. And that was enough.